Alright, so here's our new painting project. What we're gonna do is two things. We're gonna practice mixing slightly more realistic looking colors, and then we're also gonna practice blending our paint a little bit. I'm gonna do my example in watercolor, which I think is a little bit easier for this project. If you prefer working in acrylic, you can. So what I'm gonna do is two things. I could go outside and choose a leaf that has interesting dark autumn colors on it, or you could go online and find a picture of one on Google Images and kind of use that as your reference image. The benefit of using a real leaf that I found outside is, as you can see, I'm going to trace it onto my paper and save myself a little bit of time. So now I have a soft outline for the leaf I'm going to do. So get to the stage where you have an outline for a leaf that you're going to paint on a clean sheet of paper. And then hold off for a minute because we're going to talk about colors. Alright, so before we get started, I want to talk just a little bit about colors. The reason I picked painting autumn leaves is because most of the autumn leaves you'll find in nature are not going to use exactly the colors that you already have in your watercolor palette. We're going to have to do a little bit of custom mixing. So I'm going to just tell you a little bit about what tertiary colors are, because it's basically what we're going to make today. What you have on your palette right now are the primary and secondary colors, so the blue, red, yellow, then you have green, orange, purple. But we're going to go a step further than that and do some mixing of those to get some kind of more complex colors. These could be called tertiary colors, and that'd be these ones in between the two, and you mix them. So your yellow green, or your yellow orange, or your red orange. They're a little bit more complex colors, and they tend to be a little bit muddier looking. Now, instead of making a really technical color theory practice out of this, all I want you to do is look at your leaf that you've chosen to paint from and try to see what colors you notice in it. And then just play with your watercolor palette and start adding more and more colors to try to get something that's close to what you see on your leaf. So in the example of mine, I've got this kind of golden brownish orange on the lower quadrant of it and going up the stems. I've got this green that has a whole lot of brown in it, and I've got this kind of rusty reddish brownish color. And so what I'm going to do on my palette is just try to mix them one at a time. And I'm going to start with that kind of brownish yellow color. So I'll start with yellow, I'll get that wet, I'll swirl it up, and I'll add a little bit into that palette. Then I'll wash my brush, and I'll go grab some red, and I'll add that to the yellow. It's still not dark enough though, so I'll go back to my palette and I'll get some brown, I think, and I'll add that. And so we're already moving away from the brightest unmixed colors on your palette and into something a little bit more natural. So if you take that away from this, I will be totally happy. But by the end of this project, I hope you feel comfortable mixing your own custom colors and trying to match what you see either in your reference picture or what you see in nature. So, hopefully by this point you've started doing the hardest part, which is recognizing a color and mixing a custom tertiary color in your palette. You might have to experiment with that, but once you've gotten this kind of color that works for you, we're going to start something. In watercolor painting, it'd be called a wash. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that color and I'm going to do what I'd also call blocking out an area. So I'm going to paint just a very large area of my piece. It's almost like the background of the subject. We just need to lay some color on the paper so we have something to mix and work with. So I'm going to take that kind of golden orange color and I'm going to just try to apply it as smoothly as I can to the background everywhere that I think it is. So you'll notice from my example, the whole leaf isn't that kind of orange color. It's mostly just that bottom section and then all along the little veins of the leaf. So I'm going to do a wash there with my orange. Cool. So you'll see I've laid down my orange wash more or less on this paper, and one thing that makes it a wash is that I try to do all of it in one sitting. So I try to do I try to lay down that whole area, and then I'll take my brush and I'll kind of blend it all together so it looks smooth. It's very nice in a wash not to have my brush strokes showing, so I'll try to kind of go over it with the brush at the end and smooth it all out. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start mixing my other colors. The most important one to me in this video as I paint this leaf is that really pretty olive green. It's a bunch of green and it's also brown. So if you're watching along, I'm being kind of a lazy bones and I'm mixing that green straight into my orange. And that's because I know I'm done with the orange and I know from looking at that I need a nice muddy green. So I mixed a bunch of green and a little more brown into the same part of my palette. And I'm going to do the same thing I did with my oranges. When I'm happy with the color, I'm going to start doing a wash. So if you were doing a wash, all you'd do is you'd find the outline of the leaf that you've drawn and you take that next color that you've done and you're just going to fill it all in, kind of like a coloring book. So the most important thing in this lesson was that you have started to learn how to blend your watercolors and to make some slightly more natural looking, realistic colors. That's the most important thing to me. So just, the part about actually painting them onto the leaf and how you choose to blend and apply them, that's kind of up to you on this one. Watercolor painting has so much technique and theory that can go into it. It's okay if we don't get it all right away. My advice to you would be to mostly just look at your reference image and put colors where you think they go, kind of as if it was a coloring book. And you will find that if you're trying to blend the colors into each other with a smooth transition, it's only really going to work if both colors are wet. So in this case, if the orange and the green are both still wet enough that I can kind of feather them together. But I would say on this one, just experiment, see how it goes, see where you want to put which color, and if you want to put a second layer on, remember it's better to let the first layer dry. So if I have green and then there's a yellow spot on top, I kind of got to wait for the green to dry before I can put the next coat. But explore, and I'm just very, very excited to see washes of beautiful tertiary colors. So good luck.